In this video, I'm going to take you guys through what happened here in Wilder Fury 2, specifically talking about the blood that we saw coming out of Wilder's ear and the fact that his balance was so all over the place. Welcome back everyone to your #1 source for learning about everything related to sports injuries and sports medicine news. In this video, I'm going to take you guys through what exactly happened here to Deontay Wilder, specifically talking about kind of medically what I thought was going on with the bleeding we saw coming from his ear and why it looked like his balance was so severely impaired during the fight. Make sure and go subscribe if you like this type of content and want to stay up to date with my future videos, and let's get started. The course of the fight changed towards the end of the third round when Fury caught Wilder just behind the left ear with this hard right. This was the first time Wilder went down, and then after getting back up fairly quickly, he stumbled and fell down again just before the end of that third round. When Wilder got back to his corner, that's when we first started to see the blood coming out of his ear that then continued on for the rest of the fight. So I think there's a few possibilities to explain the bleeding from Wilder's ear and why his balance was so drastically altered after this hit. Certainly a ruptured eardrum is one of the causes of bleeding from the ear, particularly in the case of what we call Barrow trauma to the eardrum or any severe injury to the skull or around the base of the skull behind that whole portion of the ear can cause rupture of the eardrum. Barrow trauma occurs when pressure builds up inside the ear that causes that rupture of the eardrum. This is what happens when someone gets slapped with an open hand across the ear. That pressure that gets pushed and forced into your ear causes that eardrum to rupture. This hit from Fury didn't look like it came directly on top of Wilder's ear, but there were some other times during the sequence where Fury's glove did seem to kind of come directly on top of Wilder's ear, so Barrow trauma causing an eardrum rupture is definitely a possibility. But what concerned me more watching this at first was the location of Fury's punch. A punch hard enough in this area would worry me about a possible skull base fracture and any sort of injury to the vestibular system within the inner ear. There's something called the battle sign that we can see when someone has a skull base fracture, where you get a lot of bruising around that area directly behind your ear where Wilder was hit. A skull base fracture can cause bleeding from the ear or a ruptured eardrum because of all that excessive trauma, and just based on how hard that hit was, where it was located, watching Wilder the rest of the fight, I'd still feel a little bit concerned that he could have a more serious injury, possibly a fracture. But a hit in this area could also just damage the vestibular system that sits within the inner ear, causing Wilder's balance to become severely impaired. We can divide the ear up into three sections: the external ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. The external ear is that ear canal space up until we get to the tympanic membrane or the eardrum. The middle ear is the tympanic membrane to the oval window, and then your inner ear is your cochlea and your vestibular system. Within the inner ear, we have these structures called the semicircular canals. These semicircular canals are kind of arranged in all three different orthogonal planes, and they're part of what's responsible for helping us maintain our balance and our positioning in space. If you've ever had something called positional vertigo, these are the structures involved, where you can get little crystals that can build up and get stuck in some of these different areas of these semicircular canals and can cause you to have this severe vertigo. My fear watching this is a punch to this area along the back of the ear could cause a similar type of effect and potentially some short-term damage or injury to this whole vestibular system, which would then cause Wilder's balance to be severely impaired and explain why we saw him just essentially stumbling around the ring for the rest of the fight. Keep in mind too though that the way he was acting with his balance could still certainly just be from the hits and having a concussion. We saw Wilder get hit particularly hard in the jaw at one point, and so it's possible that all this is just sort of your routine concussion type symptoms that we can see with boxing. Either way though, I hope we get some updates that Wilder is okay. I was really concerned watching the end of this fight because he clearly was messed up. Something was wrong. He didn't know where he was. He couldn't maintain his balance. He couldn't protect himself. The ear was bleeding. And as you guys saw, his corner was getting ready to throw in the towel before the ref officially came in and appropriately stopped the fight. So those are my thoughts on Fury Wilder 2. I hope you guys learned something here about this battle sign, skull base fractures, this whole vestibular system and the anatomy of the ear. Let me know any questions or comments you have below. And until next time, we'll see you later.